Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the FACEIT Invitational for the Challenger teams here today. We are jumping into the second game of this best-of-3 series between NIP and Reason Gaming, who took the last series in explosive fashion. I'm Pulse. I'm joined by Stress. Hello, Stress.
Hello. We're already into picks and bans. Let's get that up on screen for everybody, as we have already had 4 bans out from these teams. Kassadin, Kale, Vi. This time Yasuo will be banned.
Absolutely. And it makes a lot of sense. I mean, it caused a great deal of issues, and it means they can't just pick compositions and be like, okay, well, we can combo that into Yasuo. And that was actually first pick. They were so confident with that. It caused a ton of issues for Fizz in the middle lane. It meant he couldn't get rolling up to speed as fast as he wanted to. And it may not have won them the game outright, but by delaying Fizz, it had a kind of effect in that way.
Well, it's not too surprising to see it being first picked. It's banned in pretty much every game. And it's just such a strong champion. And now, first pick for this game will be Lee Sin. Armin will be happy to have that Lee Sin for himself this time in the jungle. And a counter, in counter to the pick, obviously not a counter to Lee Sin, but Kha'Zix has been picked up as the first pick for a reason. They've changed it over to Gragas, though.
Yeah, that also means, well, I was going to say on the card that it would be taking it away from Armin, but not actually going to go for that one. Gragas is one of the most consistent mid laners, and there's no reason to be like, okay, well, he's going to be beaten by this champion. Ziggs can lane well against him, but he won't push him out of the game completely. It will just make his life difficult for the laning phase. Thresh as well will just be going to Barney D. And last time we saw him on Annie and was doing a great job with that, but it has been taken away from them.
Yeah, that does get taken away from Mithy, so they won't have that Thresh available for this game. Wouldn't be too surprised to see NIP locking in that Jinx, especially against alongside Leona. I think that would be a decent lane, although we've already talked about how the Thresh-Leona interactions go, so there's a little bit of a skill matchup there if you can flay away Leona before she actually completes the Zenith Blade.
It's also about being in the right position.
Yeah.
I mean, if they engage on the AD carry and you've got like a low carry, it forces them into a couple different picks rather than just saying, okay, we can just like pick Jinx, which has actually been taken away from them anyway. But it means they'll be going towards the Caitlyn, in fact, which is harder to engage upon. And they didn't decide to lock in the Leona at all. They actually went for the Mundo. So we keep theory crafting about picks, and they just changed it up last second.
Yeah, they have picked up Mundo, and the answer to that for this time by Reason will be Trundle. So, Trundle against Mundo in the top lane. That's a lot more of where we'd expect to see a Trundle picked up is in response to the Shyvana or Mundo lanes, as really he just allows you to shred through resistances, allows you to output a lot of damage. And speaking of a lot of damage, might we see another LeBlanc?
It looks like we might. Another 30 seconds on the clock before they actually put that one into the lock-in. However, Leona was picked up, so everything we said was completely correct. And that's still picked into Thresh, though. So they're very confident that they can make it work. Even if not in the laning phase, then they just want it for the rest of their composition. But it may not be something they'll be able to utilize, at least pre-6, because Caitlyn will be too far away. Thresh can flay them backwards. So it's not a lane until level 6 they can really get going.
Yeah, and that's one of the problems with certain team compositions, where you look at those points in the game is, do you give away too much before that? They have locked in LeBlanc here as well, so LeBlanc will be the mid lane, and Kha'Zix insta-locked to finish off the team composition, so it will be another Kha'Zix in the jungle.
Okay, so that will be going to Trashy this time, and we saw exactly what Ammon could do with that pick, but Trashy is going to show what he can do with that, but they don't really need those early kills on anyone else other than Trashy, so they can actually start prioritizing a single person. Whereas we see so often NIP running these like 2 champions that really need those early kills.
Yeah.
But this time around, we're not actually going to see that. This time, we're also seeing the LeBlanc, and sometimes they also have like an assassin mid lane to accelerate the resets. And this time, they're also running Jinx, so you can get a kill with LeBlanc, get excited, and then keep on rolling that team fight.
Yeah, and it's a very similar champion style for NukeDuck as he likes to play. He loves to play Kassadin. Any champion that really is able to roam is a champion that NukeDuck will prefer to play, and LeBlanc certainly has the roaming potential already. We saw that out of Chuyu earlier today in the MYM series, so we are headed into the delay period, which means we have 3 minutes until this game goes live. It means you're stuck with us for 3 minutes. I'm sorry, guys.
Unfortunately, we won't have anything interesting happening.
Wow.
Well, apart from
we'll have
apart from
plenty
stress.
interesting.
Stress is interesting.
This is getting weirder and weirder by the minute. But
The studio segments, man.
Oh dear. Well, what we are here for, of course, is the FACEIT Challenger Invitational. Now, a couple of people may not know who or what FACEIT is. FACEIT is a web platform for tournaments and competitive gaming, and it's for every level of competition as well. So everybody from bronze all the way up to challenger can get involved at a competitive level. So make sure you sign up to the FACEIT platform. That way you'll be able to get involved in our daily tournaments. And there's a lot of daily tournaments going on.
Yeah, so if you're a challenger player like Stress over here, then you can take part in those games. It might be difficult to find some allies since, challenger players are few and far between. Or if you're like an unranked scrub like me, then you can also get involved. But you won't be playing against any of those guys. You will be playing in your own bracket. So if you are kind of like in the upper echelons of your own smaller brackets, like bronze, like silver, then you'll be great. You'll be good to go.
Be good to go, and you can win FACEIT points and then get 5 million of them and get a car.
And then get a car, yeah.
Yeah, that's
and then just like drive out of bronze.
That's some pretty fantastic drive out. Sorry, I missed the joke. That drive your way out of bronze.
Excellent.
However, if you don't quite want to depart bronze that far and get yourself some new keyboards, headsets, mice, that kind of gear, there's also prizes like that available on the FACEIT platform. So you'll be able to win tournaments, trade in points, and get some awesome prizes. Now, another part of the FACEIT platform is a premium aspect of the platform, which of course premium members will get access to other prizes, more cool prizes. I believe there's some stuff like some Fnatic shirts that are being signed, so make sure you use the promo code that is on the screen with the platform. Of course, we'll be giving away a month free premium to everybody that uses the promo code, so make sure you get that in and get involved with the tournaments.
Absolutely, and I believe below the Twitch stream is a something you can click and fill in a form, and you will be available to get some of the new games. I think Assassin's Creed was one of the titles on there, along with Battlefield 4. So
I'm not making any promises. So
I heard it somewhere.
Pulse is offering to buy anybody Assassin's Creed and Battlefield 4 that fills out the form. So make sure you fill that in and tweet at Impossible, and Pulse will personally buy you all copies.
I'll go around to your house and I'll just like have bundles of games in my arms. I won't.
Luckily, I don't think that's a binding contract, so I think you're okay with that one, Pulse.
Anything that you say on stream is...
I really hope that's not binding. But, well, at least I'm not the one that has to deal with it financially, so...
Oh, well.
Yeah, Pulse, you'll have to buy everybody copies of games. But yeah, it's from DL Compare. Make sure you click that link on the Twitch page and get yourself all that, the survey filled in there. You'll get some free stuff for it as well. So it's pretty cool. We're giving away a lot this weekend, and of course with the platform as well. And I think the best thing we're giving away is some awesome challenger games. I mean, we're already midway through our second best of 3 of the day, and we've got 2 more to go today with some pretty fantastic teams as well. We're in the middle of Reason Gaming against Ninjas in Pyjamas. Coming up later today, we have Cloud9 Europe going up against Unicorns of Love ahead of a highly anticipated final best of 3 of the day.
Yeah, and that's going to be Ocelot's new team, Gamers2, facing down SK, well, the organization which used to have Ocelot in their roster. So that's going to be a grudge match, and we'll see exactly how Ocelot's new team is doing against the kind of older team. But it's actually a new lineup. It's actually Super Team EU Kappa, who was actually picked up by SK. So I believe he said they took out Gamers2 in a certain tournaments as well.
Yeah, they were at IEM. They were they took out in Challenger League. It was, but that's later today. We don't need to talk about that right now because we're headed into game number 2 here between Reason Gaming and Ninjas in Pyjamas.
And we don't even have a pause.
We don't. You've said that now. We're going to have a 10-minute pause during the game.
Curse of the commentator means that everything you say will happen doesn't, and the worst possible scenario happens instead. So, Reason Gaming heading out of their base, and the last game ended in a sort of pseudo-base race where they just made up their mind, just killed the Nexus because they happened to be there. So, NIP will see what they can bring this time round, but honestly, the game did seem like it was swinging back in the favor of NIP before the game ended.
Yeah, before it suddenly ended and Reason secured it for themselves. We were talking about how it's so obscure for a game not only to end that way, but to start so, not even slow, so close.
Yeah.
Between the two teams that neither could be separated without, really forcing the issue at the 15-minute mark. And from there, NIP attempted a Baron, couldn't do it. And Reason capitalized, then NIP got a Baron and Reason won the game.
Yeah. That doesn't even make sense. Like, you say it, and that's exactly what happened.
It is exactly what happened.
It's like the team who was winning just lost. Like, okay, fine. But that's exactly what we're hoping won't happen this time. And we will see a third game of NIP bring this one to a 1-1 and equalize this series up. But Chrislin hanging around this area, running that Caitlyn. Nice ward.
I think he's been to the Scara school of warding.
Nailed it.
Got it.
Well, we're going to have to see Bonnie D place another one down if they want that vision. But I don't think they really want to make that commitment.
I think at that point you're just like completely convicted by, well, I didn't want to ward that bush anyway.
Yeah, it's fine. If you don't place another ward down, then maybe we wouldn't have noticed it was a mistake.
Although they will see the gank slightly quicker than if they'd have placed that in the river bush.
That's true.
Not quite as quickly as if you'd warded in the tri bush.
Correctly,
But they'll still get at least a little advance warning. So
meanwhile, Miffy actually lands the ward in the right bush.
got it. There's only one bush there. It's not a tri bush.
Right.
So it's it's considerably easier to ward.
I guess so, but it doesn't even matter because Bonnie just walked into the next one, so
Yeah.
that ward control hasn't really done too much for them. But right at the moment, not too much is happening, and that's honestly to be expected. These lanes are going to be fairly slow, especially mid lane. I mean, it's a lane which has a lot of burst when you hit level 6, so not too much is going to happen there. Top lane, of course, is Mundo and Trundle. Trundle will be grinding down Mundo. We've said before, this is really where Trundle came into the scene because of the Mundo and Shyvana picks.
I mean, earlier in the day, we saw Chuyu go aggressive in the early levels of the LeBlanc-Gragas matchup. Around level 3, level 4, if you've done enough harassing, you can engage and can get kills, but you have to overextend, and we saw Chuyu getting punished for that. We've already seen Reason in the first game really offset Fizz's point at level 4 by being available for the counter gank, and we've already seen that Reason know when these points are. Will they be able to replicate that and perhaps punish NukeDuck if he's got enough harassment down on to Senkux?
But the other thing is, Mundo, as usual, is going to be running the teleport. Meanwhile, Beansu, his objective is trying to kill him before he does that. However, he doesn't have any hard to... In fact, actually...
I was...
Ooh.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The middle part of the pillar will disrupt the teleport.
Yeah.
So there is I mean, it's not like you're moving around when you're teleporting anyway.
No.
So that should be a fairly easy one. The pillar has quite good range as well. So they should be able to shut that down, but... What you were trying to say was, if he's able to back off and get the teleport, early fights could end up favoring NIP hugely.
Yeah, I don't think he will fall behind in the early game too much either, because as he's running the teleport, and because Dragon won't be attempted for a couple minutes anyway, if he's losing the first couple levels, which he undoubtedly will because he's against Trundle, then he can just teleport back to base, teleport back into the lane, and he won't be losing all that CS that other top laners will.
Yeah.
So he's not going to feel the pinch as hard as, say, someone like Shyvana, who will usually run Ignite over teleport.
Krislin got it. Attempt number 2. Bang in the middle.
It didn't actually matter in the end because there was no gank coming through, but at least they do have that vision. Yeah.
Better to be safe. That's
absolutely. I mean, NIP couldn't have read that they missed the ward as well, so you could just like mind games them. But meanwhile, they actually go for this, not the gank, but they follow through onto Krislin. Wasn't able to flay him backwards, went onto the right target, but that's just going to harass him backwards.
And again, it's one of these bottom lane matchups that they'll get the damage down in the engagements, and then Reason will, as long as they defend themselves properly in that engagement, will then back off, land quite a bit of poke, and set up a gank for Trashy here. I was about to say Armin, but in fact it is Trashy that is playing Kha'Zix, and the lane isn't quite in a position that they'd like it to be. However, NIP haven't been able to establish wards yet. The trinkets, only Jinx is available, and that leaves River pretty open here for a gank.
I haven't actually seen too much of mid lane, but I have seen the CS differential, 41-19 from LeBlanc. That's not something you see too often.
Well, NukeDuck has done a really good job of harassing down Senkux. You already saw it slightly earlier, but the ability to go in and then back out really quickly with distortion is somewhat of a gamble, because you pretty much gamble that the opposing Gragas won't body slam you faster than you can jump back out. And it looks like NukeDuck's getting the better of those trades.
Right, but at level 6, that will stop working because explosive count is almost instant, whereas the projectile of Gragas is less than instant because it takes quite a lot of force to move a gentleman of that size.
Yes, it's pretty difficult to do that. However, it looks like they're engaging in the bottom.
But there's the flay backwards. This might keep them alive. Ammon is coming in, though. There's the zap landing. Lands the Sonic Wave, but doesn't quite want to go in. No one to really retreat to. So this kind of annoyed the bot lane, but not too much has happened.
And it's a very similar start to game number 1 in the fact that neither jungler is really finding the positioning that they need to separate these two teams. Trashy's going to look for it, but NukeDuck is pretty mobile.
Yeah, and the distortion's going to be used right there just to allow him to get back to turret after that Gragas barrel. So taking a look at the item builds, some of these players have gone back to base and come back in once again. So the double Durans from Gragas before he goes straight into a Fiends and Holy Grail on the dev camp, which is probably the most common build. I'd be interested to see what NukeDuck decides to build this game, because before we've seen the Fiends and Holy Grail, we've seen the dev camp build as well, which is fairly typical of most mid lanes, but we saw that on LeBlanc. So
Yeah.
we'll see if he decides to go for the more aggressive route or he'll go for that one.
I feel like NukeDuck's the kind of player that would prefer to min-max damage,
Yeah.
meaning he may opt for the Soul Stealer, the Magi's, obviously, it depends on how he's feeling in the lane, or perhaps even DFG, rather than going for that cooldown reduction. There are a couple of different builds, but I'm pretty sure NukeDuck is a very confident, very aggressive player and knows when he can get kills and knows when he has to back out. Explosive Cask still a third of the way until it is available once again, but the lane positioning isn't really in a place that LeBlanc can do too much damage, as Senkux will be backing off back to the base.
Lee Sin really hasn't had too much of an influence in this game. Not as much as you would kind of expect in the jungle with Lee Sin. I mean, Kha'Zix can kind of fight Lee Sin, but Lee Sin in the early game will still outfight a Kha'Zix until he starts getting kills, and we haven't really seen too many ganks. We saw Amin like jumping to the bottom lane, but Amin is usually a much more aggressive player, and we just haven't seen it in this game.
Okay, now, NukeDuck is heading back. Let's see whether he is going to build towards that Athenes, or whether he'll pick up something a little more damagey. Yeah, it's going to be Athenes. Okay, so it's a more consistent, more standard, which, again, NukeDuck has been a player that is also known to donate kills away when he knows he just needs to be consistent. It's a slightly different playstyle that we're seeing him adopt, which is, I don't want to use the word mature, but it's very more team-focused rather than I'm going to carry this game on my own. Because he seems to be able to carry the game even when donating kills away.
It's definitely not a solo queue mentality.
No.
And I feel like a lot of people go into these games like, it's solo queue, I need to carry my team, especially from mid lane as well. A lot of mid laners typically do that. But because NIP have that experience from LCS, they are a very... they're a veteran team. They know exactly what works, and this different playstyle, well, it works, but typically it's not always possible. But NIP construct situations in which it will be possible.
Yeah, and that is very true indeed. Now, top lane. Oh no, bottom lane.
Bottom lane, more is happening. Amin has gone for the gank, and we spoke about his effect not having too much, but there's the first blood. Super Mega Death Rocket comes across and connects. Meanwhile, in the mid lane, though, we do have the follow-up from Trashy. Not quite able to take down NukeDuck, as those Void Spikes are very close to NukeDuck's face.
That was a perfect solar flare out of Leona. As the Lantern brought Caitlyn to safety, locked her down right away, and they were able to pick up the kill. Very nice positioning and teamwork out of NIP.
One of those moments where you're shouting at your teammate, don't take the lantern, as opposed to Bronze 5. But Amin also gets caught in the middle lane. Trashy throws down some damage again. Void Spikes aren't quite enough. In fact, Ignite's still ticking, and Amin just barely escapes with his life.
Yeah, Trashy didn't quite have the mana on that engage to actually be able to jump in. It looked like he would have had a kill for sure, but without the mana to cast spells, Kha'Zix's not able to pick up kills.
Yeah, he actually had the isolation as well because of the knockback, so he wasn't quite able to get that down. Again, the item builds, speak about the middle lane. Bottom lane, going to go for very similar item builds again. The BF sword's picked up. Zoro Zero being chased after. Subjugate has come down, and that escape route has been blocked off. The chomp comes out. The chomp the waters.
Yeah, Beanstu is doing a good job of trading with Zoro Zero here. He's slightly down on CS, but you saw him wait for Subjugate until Mundo was under half of their health. And that was when he wanted to trade. Unfortunately, he couldn't quite keep the fight onto the Frozen Wastes, so wasn't able to have that extra movement speed. Senkux has dropped very low, but NukeDuck doesn't even need to finish that all in. He's done enough damage.
Yeah, I still want to call that move Contaminate.
I'm pretty sure it's Frozen Wastes. Or Wasteland.
Frozen
Wasteland.
Main.
It's
Frozen
something.
It's Frozen something. Frozen Contamination.
I was hoping I was just going to get away with calling it Frozen Wastes and would continue.
I was hoping it was going to run the traditional Trundle skin, so I could just call all the original names I memorized, but That's not going to happen. Beansu, please.
However, Beansu will be happy to farm up in that top lane. Zero is still doing a good job of farming and will go aggressive now. No Subjugate still not available for a little while longer, so that's his time to trade in lane. But speaking of trading in lane, Senkux is definitely getting the worst of these trades in lane against LeBlanc. It's a difficult lane to play.
It is, and it's actually a very difficult lane to play from both of these players.
Yeah.
But Gragas, after he's got the Athenes and Holy Grail, when he's got more random resist, he's usually in better shape to survive that LeBlanc burst. You usually need to like chain everything together instead of just like QR distort and then you're dead. When with some other champions,
there was a really big cooldown use. Solar Flare was used by Mithy to try and get a kill in lane, and Reason, noticing this, have rotated down towards the dragon. The Super Mega Death Rocket wasn't able to pick it up, but Kha'Zix has great dragon control early on because of the isolation damage. They're giving away a top tower for this. The gold will draw somewhat even at this point in the game, but the map control that NIP will get from that is somewhat favorable.
Especially 12 minutes into the game, the dragon won't be worth as much as it will later on.
Yeah.
And therefore the tower and the map control definitely outweighs that. Reason Gaming probably made the right decision considering where the members were, and because Frunda was recalling, Miffy gets pulled into them with Flay and Death Sentence, but Miffy quite tanky with Eclipse.
And now they will counter-engage.
Yeah, he's still got the extra resistances. Crislin dragged back, and Death Sentences comes through, doesn't quite connect. We have a large congregation of players in the upper jungle. Not sure what they're looking for, maybe a convention of some sort.
Yeah, they were just trying to look to the red buff, but bottom lane, we had about 3 different engages there. Neither team really managing to get the damage down, and will reset themselves, start farming this lane out once again. Mithy tries to go aggressive, Zenith Blade back, Zap does land, but neither team finding the position they need.
Super Mega Death Rocket not too far away from being off cooldown, only about another 10 seconds, and that might well be read by Kristen. He might stick around for another wave, he might just back off, and I think the wiser move was made right here. The Eclipse has been popped by Leona, and Barney is actually going to have to stop recalling just so he can stop his ally being taken down, and that actually kept him in lane, and he's actually probably got quite a lot of gold to spend as well. He hasn't gone back in a while.
Yeah, I wonder how much damage has been put onto that lower tower. We will see that. It's actually critical damage. It's dead.
It's now rubble.
Yeah, we didn't see it in time, but at least it answers our question.
It does. It's actually 0. So Armin going to be farming up his own jungle. The second wave of buffs has gone ahead and spawned. We're only 1 and 0 so far. I mean, this time we are running less assassins and less resets, and we don't expect the game to be accelerated as fast as we would last time. And as byproduct of that, it means NIP don't need to run a very fast game. Beansu going to find himself 0-0, but 0-0 respects how strong Subjugate can be.
Yeah. Again, it's top lane. These two will fight for about 2 minutes, and then they'll both pop ultimates, and they'll both get very low, and probably neither will kill the other.
Yeah, and they might recall, or they might sustain, and then they'll carry on farming.
Yep, that's top lane for you. But not to say it isn't exciting, because it's exciting.
Okay.
Mid lane's exciting.
Yeah, mid lane.
Because we've got LeBlanc.
Let's talk about mid lane. In fact, Trashy's sitting behind Beansu. He might go for this engage. Subjugate is still there. The frozen something has been thrown down, not frozen down. And 0-0 will be backing off with the sadism popped. That extra movement speed keeping him alive. Meanwhile, bot lane though, Miffy is being dragged around by Barney D. There is the death sentence, but Crislin is still just wailing away at Freeze. He should be able to pick up the kill. There's the zap, there's the get excited. See if he can do the same onto Barney D. There it is, double kill, goes down for Freeze.
And this is a good example of why we've seen the meta shift towards junglers favoring the bottom lane. Is there's just so many ways for top laners to get out with their lives that it's just too difficult to gank top. Even with a high damage champion like Kha'Zix and a champion like Trundle, who will trade favorably against the Dr. Mundo, Mundo still makes it out alive. Whereas down in the bottom lane, they get 2 kills and now push on towards their next turret. They do have to contend with the members of of Reason heading down towards that bottom lane, but NIP picked themselves up a good few objectives there.
Plus a ton of the AD carries at the moment, like Jinx and like Sivir, push really, really hard.
Yeah.
So if you get a kill, then you are going to take a turret. You are going to push up to the next turret. And it's going to be very difficult unless you have like counter siege, which you've probably killed because usually the AD carriers are the one with the counter push at the moment.
Yeah, and NIP are looking in really good position right now. Having the 3 kills on their AD carry already is really good, but I don't know whether Armin will get the best of this trade in the jungle. He's isolated.
I'm not sure if he wants to be here anymore, and he will back off. Well, top lane's definitely top lane. 0-0 has been slowed down. Friends in the main came out, and he was to go kind of wander off again.
Now, back to that mid lane. You can see Nukeduck landing as much harassment as possible in that middle lane. Has finished the Sorcerer's Shoes as well, so has quite a lot of damage right now. I think he's sitting on a couple of, just over 1,000 gold, I would expect right now. Hasn't been back to buy in a little while, but we'll see what his next item is. Constantly looking for that harass.
I really feel like there should be a short made at some point where like you just pan to mid lane and they're like super mechanically aggressive and you've got like Faker throwing in all the moves with Zed. And you just like pan up to top lane, it's like 2 Trundles just hitting each other with mallets. Like that is the extent of the micro from top lane.
Well, he doesn't have a mallet this time. He's running Little Slugger.
That's
Trundle,
true. There's a nail in there somewhere as well. That's pretty painful. Not sure if that's even legal.
Yeah, I don't think in Little League you are allowed to put nails in your baseball bat.
A corporate mundo now.
That's the corporate softball league. Trundle's
he
the
sold
star
that
player.
contract. He knows what's up. I'm not even sure throwing briefcases at people is legal, but whatever. It's not like they do too much damage. But Solar Flare comes down, and will we play backwards? Miffy comes out, the Eclipse comes across, and everyone just disengages as fast as they engaged.
This is just so similar to game number 1. The pacing of the game, just the way that the teams are moving around the map as well. And it's just an indicator of how close these two teams are, that they can't be separated in a laning phase, which normally is when you see challenger teams with a difference. The laning phase is where the game is already won.
Yeah.
This time, no chance.
No. Well, Ninja and Pyjamas, they're ahead in the sense that they can take the dragon.
Yeah.
Because Reason Gaming just don't want to fight them. But yeah, I agree. The game is definitely up for grabs, and it will result in a longer game. Sencooks tries to juke the point-and-click abilities, but it doesn't work out because they are point-and-click.
Yeah, that's not the easiest jukable, but nevertheless, we see in this middle lane, NIP are starting to really ramp up their pressure in this game. They've already taken down the bottom lane turret, so that one is not an option for them anymore. We're out of the laning phase now, solidly out of it, as 2 turrets have fallen in favor of NIP, and they're ahead. And that is not a good sign if you're Reason Gaming to be behind against a LeBlanc coming out of the laning phase.
And Ninjas and Pyjamas are quite happy to group up as a big stack of 4 people or a big stack of 5 or 3 people, which makes it very difficult for Trashy to land his burst because he'll get blown up. Reason Gaming are good in rotations, they're good in small fights, but smaller fights than NIP and what they're allowing them to get. This is going to be the blue buff kind of contested here, and I'm not sure if Reason Gaming can do all that much.
So both teams have an assassin on their lineups with LeBlanc and Kha'Zix. The difference is LeBlanc, even though hasn't had any kills, has been farming very well, and that might be enough.
Ammon pinned against the wall with explosive cask, and that is a bottleneck that no one's getting through. The pillar comes up, so does the flame chompers. And who picked up the blue buff?
It looks like... Is that Trashy's old blue buff, or is that a new?
Can't tell.
Trashy has a blue buff. Didn't use Smite for it, though.
Someone got it. But that's going to be death sentence coming across. It's going to be minions dying in rapid succession. And Trashy is off to the side. But again, he's very easily taken down. He's got, well, 1.5 damage items, but he needs these smaller fights. He needs to be 1 versus 1s and 2 versus 2s.
Yeah, they need to pick up just a couple of kills, really, to get Kha'Zix rolling in this game. Now, NIP will just be content to sit around in this middle lane, push through the waves, but not get hooked.
Nukeduck gets hooked in. He will be jumping out with a distortion. The rest of the team is doing work. Trashy is trying to clean up. He's chosen the right clone, but Trashy backs on off, and he's unable to do too much. Ammon goes ham. He goes right behind the turret, picks up that kill, ward jump backwards, and that will be 2 kills secured by NIP.
And NIP managed to take the turret as well. That's a really good pickoff for them. Mundo was pushing in the top lane as well, and they got they got hooked in by that. Nukeduck managed to get himself away from that with his life. Had Trashy picked up the rest of the damage onto LeBlanc, that would have been a very different fight, as Trashy would have got the reset, but not quite able to, and it means that NIP got themselves the best of that.
Oh, flash into the Zenith Blaze should result in another kill, but the Ignite's ticking down. He may well drop from this one. In fact, he will from the Ignite. Doesn't even need the ace in the hole. Zencooks is being followed up by 0-0 and NukeDuck, who will take that down. That's another 2 kills to 1 advantage in IP.
Crislin tried to use the ace in the hole there to pick up the kill on to Leona, but the problem was he stood right in the middle of the lane to do it, and Freeze was already on high health with Caitlyn low, and it just resulted in another kill.
The tether has landed onto that supporter fresh, and already he has disappeared from the Summoner's Rift. Beansu is being painfully slowed down, tries to get the flash of the wall, will get it. Do NIP commit? No, they won't, but that's a flash down from Trundle.
Yeah, NIP look like they'll just back off, make sure they've cleared all their waves and established some ward control, but NIP have solidly gained a lead here, and Battle of Mobility there was won out by neither player in the middle lane, as they both managed to get away from that one.
Every time Nuke jumps forwards just to farm the minions, you can just see Trashy flinch and just back off to a throw. It's like, oh, it's actually just farming the minions, but Prislin's farming out more of that jungle. Trashy, quite confused. I mean, he wanted those wolves. He does have the item which increases the amount of gold he gets from it, but, you know, it's fine. AD carry can take it.
Well, Zencooks as well, to talk about the farming in the mid lane right now. Earlier had a big CS disadvantage to begin this game, but now that he's had the itemization and the waves are pushing in towards him and he's able to farm out the waves with the barrels, he's caught himself back up in farm already. He's only 5 behind now, which at this point in the game is negligible. So, you know, Gragas done a good job of keeping himself relevant in this game. And Gragas is a champion that as long as you've got your ultimate available, even if you're behind, you're still relevant.
Yeah. When you're running a longer game as well, you can see why the Fiends comes into effect from LeBlanc, because it means you can start using Distortion to clear out those waves.
Yeah.
And LeBlanc really does have issues, because typically at this stage in the game, with like 23 minutes in, you do not expect LeBlanc to have 210 CS. You more expect LeBlanc to have maybe half of that, because you are just confined to last hitting with auto attacks and your Sigil of Silence. But she is able to use that Distortion more often.
I think another reason why we're seeing maybe unusually high CS on a LeBlanc is the fact that he hasn't had to roam much at all in this game. And normally when you see a LeBlanc in a game, they're very active, but there's just no real security here. I mean, there's a Thresh in the bottom, which allows them to get out of trouble using the Dark Passage. Top lane, you're very rarely going to get a kill without committing 3 people to it. And I think just the way he hasn't been able to rotate around the map and pick up ganks is just lending towards farming on LeBlanc.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's typically something you don't see, but you have 2 assassins on both of the teams, so they kind of just cancel each other out. And because top lane is so, well, nothing's really happening in top lane, and bot lane has been more of the junglers offering their assistance, and stuff has happened in bot lane, but it hasn't needed LeBlanc to be there. And if she leaves, then Gragas will take a turret in mid lane, so it just results in more gold than you would usually see. And it's funny, because has that actually given LeBlanc as much gold as she would have gotten if she'd just gotten kills instead?
That's quite a good question, but I think the fact that they've gone, that he's gone Athenes on this does obviously help. That is, he's not relying on any kind of Medjay's build where, you know, it's so shaky. If you die once, your build is almost done, which, you know, we have seen from quite a few players building Medjay's. We are heading back into the game, guys, as we are unpaused. But I think that consistency that is going to come from the Athenes play will benefit him alongside this farm.
Okay, well, he definitely has a lot of farm, and definitely has a lot of gold already well on his way to that second big item. Miffy being zoned away from the turret and being dragged back into it. The death sentence comes out into the box. He's completely locked down. Super Mega Death Rocket lands onto Bonnie D, but it's not enough to execute him. 0-0, you are tanking the turret, and Beansu will follow up onto you. The Subjugate hasn't quite come out just yet until he knows he can secure this kill. Actually just bats him away back to that turret.
Yeah, he did use Subjugate there. You can see the particle effects on him, indicating that it was still available, which is somewhat of a subtle effect. There's actually a blue tether that goes from one champion to the other. So, I mean, he did save it for the very last moment there that he needed it, just to make sure that he stole it away.
Yeah, and Sadism came down, and Mundo was full HP again. So, Now the dragon is available. We'll see who jumps after it. It's going to be NIP, and it doesn't look like Reason Gaming won any of it. Those outer turrets, the middle turret, the bottom turret, the ones you usually run to or allow you to have that map pressure, have been removed by NIP. So this is going to be an easy objective for them.
Yeah, that is a simple dragon for them right there. 8 kills to 2 with about a 6,500 gold lead. That's a significant lead for them right now at this point in the game. It's enough to make them feel comfortable to engage this fight.
Solar Flare comes down, connects onto Bonnie D. He will hook 0-0, but that's not the target that he wants to be focusing. His Sadism is on cooldown, or off cooldown now, is going to be popped by him, and this is a very slow fight, but we'll be ramping up very quickly. Freeze gets a reset on Get Excited. Beansu is still trading with 0-0 in the back line, but he's going to be cut off by Flame Jumpers. They are still trying to get this kill. There's the Gragas barrel coming out. Trashy picks up one, gets the reset, jumps back out again. That's the 1-for-2 advantage, NIP.
Yeah, and NIP got a nice kill by Nuke going over the wall and just destroying Krislin. You can see Krislin died before he even was able to pop barrier, so that's how fast that kill was. Now they look towards the inner turret as LeBlanc goes aggressive once again, and Nuke has found the point in the game where he's going to be aggressive as often as possible.
He's 3-0-0. That's a great scoreline. Trashy jumps onto Nuke. That's going to be the passive. Actually popped out here, and he will just be backing off.
Yeah, backing off to safety. What will he choose to pick up? Because he picked up that needlessly large rod, but he's had a kill since, has been farming as well. What will he finish off? It's the Rabadons has been finished alongside another blasting one.
Looks like a Void Staff next.
Yeah.
And then maybe after that we'll see a Death Fire Grasp. But at that point there was no real reason not to go for a Death Cap because you already had AP.
Yes.
Like as a first item, Death Fire Grasp is great, but if you've already got AP and you can get a Death Cap, then get a Death Cap.
Yeah. Getting a Death Cap will always help in the mid lane, unless you're running an AD champion, which it won't help. But
well, I mean, if you're running Zed, it definitely will. But there are some mid laners who do have some AP scaling in there.
Yeah, indeed. However, scaling is the name of the game, and Jinx is pretty good at it. Especially with 4 kills and 4 assists.
I mean, that helps. Well, Amin could potentially be caught out here by Trashy Beansu and Barney D. The hook comes across and doesn't quite connect, but that will be the flash burnt, making sure he keeps himself safe in his own river.
And NIP have just slowed the pace of the game a little bit. They know they're ahead. They know they're significantly ahead as well, so they just need to push out the lanes and make sure that they're being careful about where they take these fights against assassins. Amin looked to go aggressive over the wall, couldn't quite land the Sonic wave, but will they follow up onto Trashy?
That's going to be the Super Mega Death Rocket coming across. I believe it hit Senkox. I didn't quite see because 0-0 is more interesting.
Well, he was pushing on towards the top lane,
He's
but
awesome,
the amount of damage they put down on Trashy then means that Trashy has to back off. And now NIP feel confident that they can head towards the Baron area, but 0-0 might be caught out here.
Yeah, Beansu is just going to, in fact, just kind of fight him. Subjugate comes down. Barney D is still around the area. There's the Xenoblade. Senkox will be killed off by Amin. Senkox is going to be going down. 0-0 is still at the back line. He's going 1 versus 4. Krislin will be followed up by Amin, but he's gone maybe a little bit too deep. Freeze has finally gotten up to the rest of the fight. Gets 1, gets the 2nd, looks for the 3rd. Surely Krislin's gonna fall, but Barney D is not going anywhere. That's the triple kill, and Krislin will be the quadra kill for that Freeze AD carry.
For a 2nd quadra kill of the day, that is an ace for Ninjas in Pyjamas, and they're looking a lot more consistent than they did in the later part of game number 1. Of course, they did pick up the Baron and then ended up losing the game, but I have a feeling that the surrender vote has come through because that was a lot of abilities used to try and kill the Baron. But Reason Gaming will surrender the game out at 29 minutes.
Yeah, the game was definitely not going their way, and it definitely made sense at that point to just toss in the surrender, but we do still have another game after this.
We do. That means we're going to game 3 for the 2nd time today. And we're going to head to that game as quickly as we can, guys. So stick with us here for the FACEIT Challenger Invitational. We're going to head to a very short break. We'll be back in a couple of minutes.